Uh, the thing about my thoughts about the Bulldozer Matt Tremont. Um, Matt Tremont. He is a fun loving guy. He just um a hard worker. Who's trying to bring the mainstream of professional wrestling, and I remember where um met with Matt Tremont back in 2011 when he was in DWF. Uh, when he brought in the guys like Drew Blood, uh, and including Xavier Cross, and he also brought in um, Oz Tyler, LSG, that's in a very first on point wrestling, and what Matt Tremont was doing is that he was expanded into the mainstream of his character, and then so Matt Tremont, when I first saw him back in 2011, he was a top notch, up and coming, rising stars of the deathmatch wrestling, and and the thing is that when he was still in DWF, I remember that Matt Tremont, and he was a great worker within the DWF, and I remember his brawls with Mad Daddy Ron Stewart, and he was part with the Empire, and brought when he brought in the Empire of Ty Reno, King Blackie, Jimmy Dylon, and so the much of the Empire, which they are a heel stable, and and I remember when he had his match with the center of attention Mark Angel at DWF. That was his final match at DWF when he jumped to CZW over at the 2300 Arena down in South Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where when DJ Hyde was in the ring, he was all bloody up, and then when he was with Pinky Sanchez, so at the time, and then the Bulldozer came to CZW, and he was making a name for himself within the ultra violent world, within Combat Zone Wrestling, and the Bulldozer, after he did make his name for himself, I remember that his matches, that the likes of uh, brain damage represents for Cold Fiction, um, and he also had this Tournament of Deaths, and he also they had his match with Black Cheese, and speaking about that, I remember where I made my CZW debut. I remember when I saw Tremont first time within the CZW. I knew I was belong to the CZW organization during the DJ High era. And when he talked about the trials, the tribulation, and he did to push his body and soul on the line for the fans and to pay the hard-earned money for him to come to see. Um, and plus, the greatest accomplishment was that when he won the CZW World Heavyweight Champion over Black Cheese at CZW. That was the most unforgettable moments in the history of CZW. And when he came in and he was the CZW top prospect and when he won the world title, everybody was going bananas when he won the world heavyweight champion, and so forth, and here's a guy that, and when he brought in light tubes in the CZW, and I was like, oh shit, this is going to be my shit within the ultra violence, and it was unbelievable. It was so unbelievable here, and I remember when Matt Tremont turned his back on CZW by attacking Joey Janela. This was kind of like when Hogan turned on WCW back in '96 with the Outsiders and formed the NWO, and Tremont built his character of Father Matthew. We call it The Awakening with G. Raver and Stockade. The part, but this is, I mean, CZW was started it to be like WCW at the time, and Father Matthew and The Awakening, they were one of the toughest stable that thing in the business, and I remember they did have this brutal encounter with the Storm of Entrails of Dan O'Hare and Schlack. The Storm of Entrails. You talk about David versus Goliath. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable match, and speaking about unbelievable, the thing about Cage of Death, one of my favorite Cage of Death of all time, it had to be DJ Hyde versus Matt Tremont. I remember when I was there. I remember that, and when I was in, it was my first Cage of Death. I remember DJ Hyde and Matt Tremont, they had this bitter rivalries within the Cage of Death. So, I remember it was me, Ref Rich, Dante Morell, Mark Angel, Sal Demendo Jones, and everything else. So with that, Matt Tremont, after the things went downhill in CZW, he came with On Point Wrestling and H2O. So Matt Tremont and the H2O did put a one hell of a cards and everything else, and Matt Tremont by far one of the best deathmatch fighters in the world, and Matt Tremont couldn't ask to put on one hell of a show within in professional wrestling. So I remember the last extravaganza when he had his match with Ricky Shane Page and the 200 Light 2s. It was right up before the second wave of COVID-19. It was my final H2O show before it hit. I didn't want to end that way. To leave H2O, all because of COVID-19. But you know, Matt Tremont, the boss, I just want to say thank you so much for everything you have done within the CZW. On Point Wrestling, GCW, and now H2O. I just would like to wish you a very happy birthday to you, Matt Tremont. And I will see you soon. Captain Dave.